So in lab 4, we created a customer screen, and that screen populated the customer model or the customer object. So if you remember, we had this customer screen here with the name and code, whatever data we put here, and we click on submit. It actually creates a customer object, and that customer object was displayed on a view. Now this object was auto-populated. In other words, without writing any kind of mapping code, this object was auto-populated. So the question is, how was this object auto-populated? Because the property names of the customer class and the text box names were same. So in other words, you can see here that we had this customer code property, and the text box was with the same name customer code here. In the same way, we had customer name property and we had a customer name text box. So because the user interface names were absolutely same as the class property names, this mapping was automatic. But when you work in real projects, user interfaces are created by web designers, and models and these controllers or the C# code are created by developers. Now these web designers, right, they are kind of a very creative people. So they open your HTML code, they start designing, they are in their own world, and what they can do is they can go and change the name here like this to txt customer name, the text box names, or they can make it like txt customer code. Now if this happens, right, then the auto population won't happen. In other words, for example, now you can see here what I've done is I have changed the text box names, right? So now if I put here Shiv, and if I put 1001, if I do a submit, you can see now the data is not passing. Why? Because now our property name and the user interface names are different. And that's where exactly model binders helps us. Model binder, you can think about, it has that mapping code, which will connect the user interface and your model. So whenever you have such kind of different naming convention, then model binders actually act like a bridge. So they map your user interface name to the object name. So let us go ahead and create a model binder and do this mapping. So at this moment, you can see here what I've done is I have changed the text box names here. So the property name and the text box names, both of them are different, right? So let us go ahead and create a model binder. So let me go and open my controller here. So I'm going to go and quickly open my customer controller. So let us quickly do this. So let me go ahead and create a class here, a model binder class. Now remember that as a best practice, you will not create the model binder class in the controller, right? You will actually create it in some different namespace, and then you can import the same here and use it, right? But at this moment, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to go and create the model binder class here. So I'll say here public class, let's say customer binder. Now in order to create a model binder, you need to go and implement the iModelBinder interface. So you can see here I have created this customer binder, and the customer binder implements the iModelBinder interface. So let me go ahead and implement this interface here. So there it is. Now in web application, when data is sent from a user interface, that means from HTML to the server side, it comes in the request object. And when data is sent from the server side to the user interface, that is to the client, it is sent in the response object. Now both of these objects, that is the request object and the response object, they belong to the context object, right? So the first thing is let us get access to the context object, and from the context object we'll get access to the request object. From the request object we'll get access to the data of both of these text boxes, and then we'll pass these text box data to the customer object. Okay, so first thing is let us try to get access to the HTTP context object. So I'll say here object context. So this we will get from controller context dot HTTP context, right? From the HTTP context object we can get access to the request object, right? So you can see that we have the request object here, and then here we can go and say request dot form like this, right? So what I'll do is I'll take both the customer code and customer name in a variable. So you can see that I've created a string variable here. So currently our text box name is txt customer code and txt customer name. So I'll say here txt customer code here, and this is txt customer name here, customer name. Great. So there is an error here. The error is because this is returning a HTTP context base object. So this has to be a HTTP context base object. Okay, right. So there it is. Now the next thing is we need to go and create our customer object and return back from this bind model method. So I'll go and create our customer object here. Let's go to new customer object, and whatever values we have got from this txt customer code and customer name, we will give back over here to this object here. So here I'll say customer code is equal to cust code and customer name, this is a comma. Okay, so customer name is equal to cust name, right? And this object I will return back. So I'll say here return obj. Great. So you can see here what we have done is we have got the access to the request object, we got the text box values, and we have constructed a customer object. We have mapped those values, we have mapped it to the object, and we are sending it back from this bind model method. Good. So I'm going to go and build this. Now the next thing is we need to use this customer binder and map it to our customer object, right? So over here, where the UI is calling this submit action, we need to go and use this code here. So this code says that go and call the customer binder class and fill this customer object, and then map those text box values to the object, and then flourish the object, right? So what I'll do is I'll put a debug point here. So let us see how it works. I'm going to go and rebuild this solution. Let us go and run this in a debug mode. So the error application is running. So I have put a debug point. So if I click on submit, so there it goes. You can see now, before it goes and creates the object, it actually goes and runs this bind model method of the customer binder. So here it actually takes up the customer code and customer name. It creates the object, puts it here, and then displays it in the UI. So there it is, right? So now your designers can work separately on the user interface. They can use front page, they can use Dreamweaver, they can go and change the naming convention of the user interface, that is text boxes and combo boxes, and your developers can work separately on the C# code, on the model, on the controller, and the model binder actually goes and maps both these worlds. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. In this video we were trying to understand the importance of model binder. So this was a very short 10 minutes video, but a very important one. So we have more 14 hours and 30 minutes pending to become a real MVC professional, and the learning will continue. Now till now I have not discussed about why MVC. Okay, till now I have completed almost 5 labs. We have completed so much time here, but I have not discussed about why MVC. Why MVC is better than ASP.NET Web Forms. So in the next video I'm going to go very detailed, and that video is going to be a big one. Why MVC? Why it is more better than ASP.NET Web Forms. Now why I'm taking this thing on the 6th video and why not on the first video? Because my belief is that when you want to compare two things, You have to understand both of the things. So if I had started comparing in the first video, then things won't have been clear. But now you know that how MVC works, you know that there is a controller, you know that there is no behind code, right, and all those things. So now I think it's the right time. You are well educated with MVC. You have worked with ASP.NET Web Forms. So now it is the right time to put the comparison before you and to make you understand that why MVC is better than ASP.NET Web Forms. So in the next video, we'll discuss about why ASP.NET MVC is better than ASP.NET Web Forms. So 14 hours and 30 minutes are still pending. Let's continue the journey. Let's move ahead. Thank you so much.